Hey, folks. Hey, Chuck.
Jim?
Happy Sunday. I'll tell you, buddy, I am just running on fumes. I'm exhausted. It's been a week. There's just a world of mess out there, and it's becoming crippling in some ways, to get through each day. And for anyone who has an ounce of empathy in their souls, it feels like we are being challenged to find the very nature to get out of bed in the morning and go forward.
Yeah. Well, Jim, folks, just because Jim and I are open books, and full disclosure, I texted Jim earlier this week. I don't remember what it was, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. And the gist of it was, do you ever feel like we're shouting at the wind? And what I mean about that, and I had to explain it to Jim because I didn't realize how cryptic it sounded until I reread it. But Jim's like, "Are you done with this?" I'm like, no. I love podcasts. Long before I got into Jim and I've talked about this, there's like 6 or 7 that I listen to almost religiously: history podcast, political podcast, just all sorts of stuff. I'm a knowledge sponge. I need to know everything. And so I was on Apple podcast the other day, and I was looking for a new podcast to listen to because one of my favorites of all time has ceased. It's called Knowledge Fight. I've talked about it.
Yes.
Because because InfoWars was shut down and bought by The Onion, they were like, okay, it's time to quit. After like 9 years, I've been listening to these guys. So anyway, so I was looking for something new, and I realized that there are a bazillion and one political podcasts out there. And while I do hope that we have kept to our original mandate, was to make this less about left and right, and more about the right side of history versus the wrong side of history. Of course, we're human beings. We slide into right and left often. I know we do. We try not to. But what it hit me was when I said, "Do you ever feel like you're shouting at the wind?" It's like we are inundated day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute with political opinions on both sides.
Oh.
And I'm just not sure that it's moving the needle at all. It's interesting because I think what's moving the needle is people's pocketbooks. $4.50 gas is moving the needle. Losing your health care is moving the needle. And that's fine. I truly believe that's the way it should be. I don't believe idiots like Jim and I, or Tucker Carlson, or Ben Shapiro, or Fox News, or OAN, or NBC, or MSNBC, whatever the fuck it's called now. I don't believe they should be moving the needle. I believe they should be informing, but I believe people's lives and what they're feeling day to day should be moving the needle politically, right or left. And I've said this before, and I say it again. If we were in a situation where we had a Democratic president, a fully Democratic Congress, and a left-leaning Supreme Court who were just passing stupid shit and just not being authoritarian, because I really don't see a Democrat being authoritarian, but being like, for lack of a better term, like ultra woke, or just passing things that didn't benefit average everyday people, I'd be screaming just as loud. And I just got this hopeless feeling this week, because every time it looks like the universe is going to give us some sort of parity, it gets slapped down again. And the one that really hit me was, I live in Virginia. So I voted, I hate gerrymandering, but, Trump begged for it, or Trump instructed Texas to do it. So they did it. And a bunch of people lost in Indiana because he instructed them to do it. And they said no. And they actually stood up to the authoritarian ways of thinking, and they all got their asses primaried. So anyway, Virginia passed it. Well, then the Virginia Supreme Court, which is very right-leaning, was like, nope, technicality, you can't do it. So Virginia appealed it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, we're not going to hear it. Now, we just gutted the Voting Rights Act, and there are 3 or 4 southern states that are literally changing their maps without a mandate of the people or anybody asking for it, and running roughshod. And I think it was, I'm going to get this wrong, so please feel free to, tell me I'm wrong. I think it was Alabama or Tennessee that literally decided to change their maps. I think it was 4 days before early voting started. So this is totally a power grab. There's nothing about this that's fair or parity. And as much as I hate it, Virginia was doing it to at least even it back out, so that the Republicans, who, by the way, if you really think you're doing a good job, why do you need to fix the election before it even happens? But the Supreme Court's like, no, we voted gutted the Voting Rights Act, and we're letting all these southern states do this. But no, we're not going to hear the Virginia one because we don't think it has merit. So So I guess it just when I feel like, and I realize I'm rambling and I'll stop in a moment, but I realize when this is all needed to come out this week. Thank you for listening, Jim. But, and everybody else. No, it just, whenever I feel like we're going to have parity again, where the will of the people will actually bear fruit. It's like, no, the right wing finds a way to tilt it their way again. And I just feel hopeless.
Yeah, and this is a great topic. And I actually have been talking to my friend Susie Hess. She's very involved in the election process here in Texas. And she's been sending me a lot of messages about how we have counties where, so many people lower, they just split it automatically and things like that. And so I'm going to get her to come on the show in a week or two and talk about this because I think she's got an opinion. I think she agrees with us in a lot of ways, but I also think she brings some true political science expertise into this because that's the work she's done. And I'm going to see her this afternoon. I'm going to see if I can then sort of find out like that appearance because I'd like to have other folks talk about this. And I'm open to the audience. If you think you've got a strong opinion and you want to jump on here and talk about it for 5 or 10 minutes, let us know. I think that's part of why we're caught in our little bit of an echo chamber. We're caught in our own little bit of our headspace. It has been a week of a lot of just weirdness from our president saying he didn't give a shit about any of us when it comes to our finances and what he was doing. It was more important that Iran didn't have a bomb.
And that might be, and I'm not trying to be funny, that might be the most honest thing he said this year.
Well, and that's sort of how it's being played. I mean, it is the political splay for a million commercials to come. Yeah. But it is true. He probably spoke exactly what he was thinking. And in that moment of critical judgment where he probably should have said it, he really told us how he's been acting the whole time. We don't matter. It's more about him. The thing that probably got me the most this week was, well, there's two things. One we didn't talk about last week that I do want to bring up right now, and that is Marjorie Taylor Greene has left the United States. Mm-hmm. She's gone to Costa Rica. Now, if you've got such a strong belief in Donald Trump, and then suddenly you find yourself questioning for your own ability to stay alive because people realize you're that stupid, and then you leave the country, you sell your McMansion for $5 million and you head down to Costa Rica. Now, let me tell you what, I'd probably be the first one to go to Costa Rica too. I'd be happy to head down there. But she's just playing a game. And I think one of the people I watch usually, Keith Richards kind of says, is she on her side or is she really just sort of playing it so she looks good? And I'm going to tell you, I think it's played to look good. I would love to be found wrong. I would love to believe somewhere in a moment she had a come to Jesus and finally realized what she was doing wasn't good. But I don't think it's true. But she is calling out things that no one wants to talk about. And I will give her credit for that. She's bringing up specific Epstein stuff. She's bringing up specific right, this past week has been just a release from a fan like I am of the Lego stuff that goes on YouTube. They have been every day critically releasing just tidbits of information. Now that also feeds the anxiety, the pain, and the sleepiness you get from it, right? But they just been saying things. And there was a day I watched the one they talked about 50 days from Epstein. It was called. If you don't see this stuff, go watch it. I'm not going to tell you it's credible. I'm not going to tell you it's the answer, but it's propaganda. And in every bit of propaganda, there's always some truth. 50 names that show up will make you question everything you know about the country you have lived in for most of your life. For those of you who are approaching your 60s like us, that's a long time. And you look back and you say, it's been a fucked up place for a while. It's been a fucked up place for a while. And it's just that we have finally lost control. And my mom used to say to me, right, Chuck, if you lie, you will eventually run out of the ability to keep all the lies in order. And you won't remember what the truth was and what the lie was. And so people who used to say, oh, there's no way we can have these conspiracies because you can't keep that many voices silent. On a one-by-one basis, you might be able to. We're at a point now where these stories, conspiracies, and lies are so big, everyone's going to start questioning everything. That's when your house of cards crumbles. Because it just takes one piece to fall out of line, one voice to step out of tune, and the whole thing goes away. So, I mean, everything from our alien stuff, 9/11, all these, it's kind of like looking back and going, when did it all start? Oh, how far back do you think, Chuck? I always say it's post-Kennedy. Kennedy was assassinated, and that was the end of the country. They sort of changed things back then. That's my take. But they made it even further back.
I think as long as there have been governments, there have been secrets, and there have been... No, I truly do. So I think, well, first of all, I want to back up. For sure. Because you are you are a much nicer, much more forgiving person than I am. And I mean that because you and I've talked about we didn't coin the phrase, but I love it, the Epstein class, because my God, that could not be more on the nose. But there's another class. And again, I didn't coin this, I've heard this, but I'm going to talk about it for a minute. The grifter class. And you're much nicer than I am because here's my point. if Jim Houck is in a situation, let's say you believed in Trump, just bear with me. Let's say you were in the government. Let's say you truly believed in Trump. You were MAGA. You thought it was going to be what all these idiots are like, well, we didn't know we were voting for that, are saying, and you were a true believer. And then the veneer came off and you're like, screw this, I got to go. Jim would go. Marjorie Taylor Greene waited until she was vested as a full congressperson, and then she left. So
And
she
good
got
call.
all her money. And to all the people who years, one of my friends is like, well, why is Nancy Pelosi worth millions and millions of dollars? Probably because she was using insider trading. I have no problem admitting that. But these same people won't look at Trump and that grifter class and you're Tucker Carlson's. You're a sweetheart. Jim, a couple weeks ago, you're like, well, I believe in second chances, and I love that about you. But Tucker Carlson doesn't deserve a fucking second chance. He pushed the war with Iraq when he knew it was bullshit. He pushed Trump when he knew it was bullshit. We have the text messages where he said, I fucking hate Trump. I can't wait till he's gone. And then suddenly, and he pushed all these conspiracies and daddy's here to spank us and all of that. And then the minute it became politically inexpedient to back Trump, and then suddenly it's like, well, I was duped. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Like, bullshit, dude. You were in it up to your eyeballs. No, I'm just saying.
In his White House trip this past week, where he said, I go to the White House and there's crickets because no one's there. It's like, yeah,
right.
you took that job, but you didn't want him. You shouldn't have.
Right, but there's this, and I'm not saying they're only on the right, so please don't.
No.
I'm waiting for somebody. I'm sure somebody's typing right now going, well, what about, it's not only on the right. But again, the right is in office right now, and Donald Trump has everything he does. We see it every single day. Everything he does is about enriching himself and enriching his billionaire friends. And that's all it is. And if you can't see that, then I don't know what to tell you other than please stop voting in elections because you're so blind you can't see anything. If a Democrat, I love how they're like, well, Barack Obama came into office and he wasn't worth much. And now he's worth like $12 million or whatever. Okay. Trump has made was it like somewhere between $1 and $3 billion? What's that?
$4 billion this term.
$4 billion this term. Billion with a B, and doing it right out in the open. And I love, God, this is why I feel so hopeless. This is the kind of stuff that drives me crazy. And I know we've talked about the right being post-hypocrisy, but do you remember Hunter Biden's laptop? And Hunter Biden made money off the Chinese government because of his dad's name.
Traveled with daddy this week.
Right. Even when Joe Biden wasn't in the White House yet, but made his money. Now, Eric Trump goes with his father to China, doing business deals when he has no official government capacity whatsoever. And everybody's like, well, it's like, wait a minute, you guys lost your
If Hunter had done it and Hunter did do it, it became a national scandal.
Yes.
So if you don't think Jared Kushner's in there because he's building his personal future, throne, then you're just
And I'm going to say this to all the people out there, and I've heard them, and I hear you. So let me say my whole piece before anybody, if you're got your fingers poised over your keyboard, hold tight for just a second. I'm going to make a whole point here, I promise. But to all the people who lost their shit about Hunter Biden making money off of the government and all of that, and Hunter Biden, fine. And Joe Biden then pardoning his son, which I'm going to say out loud, I think I've said it before, but I'll say it again, was bullshit. It ruined whatever legacy of good governance that he had, and it was absolute horseshit. Now, I know he said, and I see this point, I do. I still think it's horseshit, but he said, can you imagine how much they went after my son when they didn't run the DOJ? What do you think they would do to my son after they ran the DOJ? And we can talk about that all day, but the bottom line is he pardoned his son, and I think that's horseshit, especially since he said he would not. And if he said, I don't know, I may or I may not, and then he did it, at least he's got some argument, but he said, I absolutely will not, and then he did it. To all of those of you who are screaming about that still, let's keep remembering how Donald Trump, there's stories about it, and it's not rumors. I mean, it's going to come out. There's a pipeline of people donating millions of dollars to Donald Trump and his super PAC and his boardroom or his ballroom and all of that kind of stuff, getting pardons. And these are people who fleeced thousands of people out of their life savings, and the cryptocurrency guy. And was it the former president of, what was it? Was it Argentina or whatever that was busted for was like 300 tons of cocaine or some shit that came into the U.S. He pardoned him because, and when asked about it, Trump's like, well, people told me he got a really rough deal. And it's like, no, he was convicted of doing, he's caught red-handed. So all of those of you who are all upset about Joe Biden pardoning his son, and I am too, just remember, Trump has pardoned 1,600 J6ers. All these people who are doing fraud, which by the way, that's his MO. So yeah, I mean this is arguably, and it's not my words, it's everybody. It's a lot of people's words. This is arguably the most corrupt administration we've ever had. And I just don't understand why everybody doesn't see that and stop drinking the Kool-Aid, spit the Kool-Aid out and go, my God, how did we get here?
Well, it's funny because there's been a steady line of current, former, whatever you want to call it, MAGA-ites who've been taking to the news waves and dialing in and saying, gosh, I voted for him 3 times. This isn't what I thought he was going to do. He's the most corrupt president ever. I'm like, when the narrative suited you, you changed your tune. Right. So I can't believe in anyone who said at one point they thought this was all good and then turns out it changes it, because at some point now it's impacting your pocketbook. That's why you're upset, because you were promised things you didn't get and you're starting to see those hollow promises. The fact that you believe those promises up front is probably the bigger question. When you believe the president's going to lower prices on day one, he's going to solve the war in Russia, he's going to solve these prices, right? If you believe presidents can do that stuff on their own without the help of others, you're sorely wrong, because it takes more than a president. A president's a figurehead. It's a position. The person really isn't what makes things happen. And when it's the right person, it can make things happen, or you can do it all. If Donald Trump's family can take in $4 billion in 1 year from items related to cryptocurrency selling because of his position in the government, the ships on the ballroom, the golden statues, the Trump arch. I mean, it just goes on. The pool, the reflecting pool, which is now a shit show because so poorly done. He distances himself, right? I mean, and that was the best of this week. Oh, that's not my pool guy. But you go back and find 100 quotes and say, well, I'll get my pool guy on it. He'll get a better price. That is so far overdone. It's so poorly done. There's so many defects. We're blazing towards America's 250th anniversary. I hope all this shit blows up by then, because I want to see it all collapse. Because ultimately, I don't want any honor right now for this country. I don't want any honor for 250 years, because we're not honoring the leader, right? We're supposed to honor our country. We keep forgetting. It's not about him. And if his name is on something on the 250th anniversary, then we just should be going in there and taking it down. It should not be there. But, yeah, it's a tough time. It's a hard time to be shouting at the wind. And I understand that. I got that expression when you sent it to me. I know what that means. But it is hard to shout when no one's listening, and even harder to shout when people feign they're listening and not taking action. The real truth's going to come in a few months here, folks. You get to go vote. If you don't get your ass out there and vote the right way, if you go put the same people back in power who've been taken from you, taken out of your pocketbook, putting their hands in your pants, you are going to just keep enabling this. We aren't going to fix this in the midterms. This is going to be a multi-year time. And we have to hope to God we find someone who can stay the course, and some people in this country who can take that will to go forward, right?
And you just said something, you said a bunch of things that I that I agree with, and there's like 8 things I want to talk to you about in those, but there's a couple that I'll go with. If you voted for Donald Trump in 2016, okay, you listened to the bullshit and you thought, maybe, I get it.
There was a lot of bullshit going on in that election. Both. I mean, it was really
well, and we've talked about this. Hillary Clinton was arguably one of the most qualified candidates in the past 50 years.
But the most divisive.
And I was going to say, and the worst campaigner.
Yeah.
My God, I think of Michael Dukakis when I think of her. And I mean that for those.
I'll tell you a funny story. I lived in Boston when Michael Dukakis was governor.
Okay.
Driving through downtown Boston one day, somebody walks out from the curb in a crosswalk. I could have hit it and killed him. So it was.
Michael Dukakis.
Dukakis.
Jim, you could have saved us a lot of pain.
I mean, I could have set a whole different course in history.
But no, so I mean, so 2016, okay, fine. And then you lived through 4 years of it. And I'm going to repeal well, first of all, I'm going to get out of the deal with Iran and then I'm going to, because Barack Obama did it, a black man did it who said something mean about me once. And then I'm going to get rid of Obamacare, which was not perfect by any means, but working, because a black man who said something mean about me once came up with it. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to give you I'm going to replace and repeal and replace Obamacare with something amazing in 2 weeks. Well, we're 11 years in and we're still 2 weeks away from this amazing thing. But what they actually did is they just said, well, fuck it. We'll get rid of all of the subsidies and we'll just let it die on the vine and have 20 or 30 million people, whatever it is, go without health care. If you keep voting for this man and the sycophants who keep him in power, you deserve this. The sad part is we don't. The rest of us don't. The rest of it it's the same thing. It's like You've been watching Fox News, you've been watching AON, you've been watching Newsmax, you've been listening to Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro and Levine and all these guys. And they had you believing that Democrats were these evil people that wanted, men in dresses to rape your children and, cut your penises off and all of that kind of stuff and take all of your money in taxes and spend it on, on men in dresses and all of these kind of things. And they were pedophiles and they were this. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of the biggest ones screaming that the left was pedophiles. And then QAnon came out of nowhere and Donald Trump, Big Daddy Trump, was going to come in and fix this pedophile ring and everything else. And then at some point you had to realize we were right, wrong team. Because, and I'm not absolving Democrats. If there are any Democrats on the Epstein list, they all need to be taken out back and shot. And I stand by that. But I think we're all starting to see that the people in power in this country are on that fucking list, and you keep voting against your own self-interest, and you're going to cry about gas prices and this. And I saw a posting on, it was yesterday or this morning or yesterday or today, I don't remember, but some dumbass on Facebook is like, well, Barack Obama is hiring 9 lawyers because he gave $1.7 billion to Iran. Folks, let me school you. And look this up. Don't take my
Iran schooled everybody. You don't like them anymore.
I know, right? But don't take my word for it. Let me school you on this. That is absolutely correct. Barack Obama did give $1.7 billion to the Iranian government because they signed the agreement, the nuclear agreement, and it was their money that we had frozen because
the Shah of Iran was toppled.
Right. We froze their money. So let me ask you a question, Jim. If I'm holding $100 of yours that I have held necessarily legally, but I have $100 of yours, and then I give it to you, am I literally giving you $100, or am I giving you $100 I shouldn't have had in the fucking beginning? And that's all fine and good. For those of you listening, and you're going to start screaming and, poised over the keyboard over this, Trump just released, what was it, a couple of $100 billion of money of theirs that we were holding to try to get them to surrender or whatever the hell you want to call it. And they said, gee, thanks, and haven't done that yet. So quit whining about Barack Obama. And I'm not defending Obama. I'm defending a situation that happened. It was part of diplomacy. We let them have $1.7 million of their own, or $1 billion, of their own money as part of this agreement, which, by the way, they were holding their part of until Donald Trump's like, I don't like it. And instead of doing something different, he just got us out of it. And guess what? Here we are today. So when you fill up a tank and it's $75, $80, $100 to fill up your tank this week, remind yourself that $1.7 billion that in cash that Barack Obama put in a backpack and handed the guys in Iran was just releasing money that they already had. But Trump did like 10 times that. So where's the whining?
Yeah. Well, there is no end to our commander-in-chief's need to feed his own ego. We've now initiated a sculpture garden that's going to be built in the National Mall.
You mean because he saw China's and he was like, I want one of these?
And he wants to have, they're all predominantly white American heroes.
What?
I'm like all his friends.
I don't believe it, Jim.
I know. Can you believe it? I must be drinking something, right, Chuck? I mean,
I hate to be this dramatic, but when I think of Donald Trump, at least the last 3-4 months, all I can think of is Nero. And I don't know if this actually happened, but Nero fiddling while Rome burns.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is,
it's the view we all know, right? We've all heard the story.
Right. So let's just say for a minute that it is true because it's a great analogy.
Or Marie Antoinette.
Let them eat cake, which she never said, but whatever. Right. What she said is, don't they have cake? But still, it is a little different. No, we've got people are paying national average $4.50 for gallon of gas, which we all need. We all need to do that. Energy costs are higher. Food costs are higher. Healthcare costs are higher. Health insurance is higher. Drugs are higher. And no, we're not saving 1,000% on drugs because that means that the drug companies would be paying us. But whatever. I love how RFK Jr. said, well, Donald Trump has different math of doing percentages.
Across the board, Doug, he has different math for everything.
That is the sweetest way in the world of saying that this old man can't do math. But whatever. No, Americans are hurting. We talked about this last week. Americans are putting food and gas on fucking credit cards because they can't make ends meet. And this guy is in China and other places making deals for his own company to make himself money, make his buddies, pardoning fraudsters because they're giving him money and they said nice things about him. And he's trying to build this $1 billion ballroom and a fucking arch. And now, because he sees another bright, shiny object, he's like, hey, this garden looks really good. You have one. I should have one too. And there have been a lot of presidents over the years who came into office with money and were tone deaf. It happens. I mean, it's sad, but it happens. When you've been raised with a lot of money, like a George W. Bush or an H.W. Bush or somebody like that, and you've been raised, or Trump, and you've been raised around a lot of money, then you say dumb things like you have to show your ID at the grocery store because you just don't know. And we can dismiss that once in a while and go, whatever. Does that really bother you that much? So on and so forth. But this guy has no idea what it's like, because every time he's declared bankruptcy, somebody has, what is it? The bank in Germany, Deutsche Bank, or was that what somebody bails him out and allows him to keep moving along. So he doesn't know what it's like to do without. And the American
Even when Trump was technically on the books insolvent,
Mhm.
he was still able to live his life, live his lifestyle, keep the things he wanted. Nobody came in and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Trump, your credit card bounced."
Right. Well, and people talk about the two-tier justice system. If there is, and if you don't believe that the Epstein class lives a different way than the rest of us do, Donald Trump was charged with embezzlement, fraud, and all of that, and never spent a day in jail. Yeah, they took his picture. Whoop-de fucking poo. You and I would have sat in a
I
jail
have
cell.
in a jail too.
What's that?
I have a picture to jail too.
But I'm saying we would have sat in jail until the trial. We wouldn't have been allowed to go out and campaign, for God's sakes. So I don't understand.
Yeah, well, and I
There
think
are still
the
people
Epstein.
out there who will tell you that we're better off under Trump than we would have been under Kamala Harris, which, first of all, like we talked about last week, is a complete bullshit scenario, because we don't know how she would have done
Right.
as president. But I can guarantee you she wouldn't have be building an
It wouldn't have torn the East Wing of the White House down just for the hell of it.
I can guarantee you she would not have. Yeah, she wouldn't have allowed them to demolish the White House without permission. She wouldn't be building an arch to herself, and she sure as fuck wouldn't have got us into an unnecessary war with Iran. She would have she would have told Israel to go fuck yourself, do it yourself. Maybe we'll give you some bombs to help you out, but we're not going to actually do it.
Yeah. So that's the one thing that is definitely becoming more and more obvious is how global the Epstein stuff is. I just finished reading a book about Epstein, and I was even at the end of that book, because there's a lot of discussion with witnesses and the stories and stuff like that. It really, like I said, it does shake your foundations when you realize this guy he was running a very elite, potentially CIA based, I would bet, blackmail.
Mm-hmm.
He was capturing data on all the world's elites and the things they did. Some worth something, some not, but he was putting it in a file, so he's always ready to pull trigger. Well, he's had that on worldwide. I mean, there are leaders.
Well, and that's why they're slow rolling. And you and I've talked about this. If you're going to put out half of the files, you can almost guarantee the second half are worse than the first half. And that's why they're slow rolling those. And there's some talk, and this is not a conspiracy theory, I've read this several places, that some people who are in the know believe that he was actually working for the Israeli government too.
Yeah.
For Mossad. I mean, if you're a piece of shit like Jeffrey Epstein and you're screwing and you're assaulting little boys and little girls, I don't have any problem believe that you would play both ends against the middle and work for Israel and other places and blackmail people and all of that. That's how he kept it all going. Because if you go, crazy thing about Epstein is, and no one's really tracked, well, they sort of have, but nobody's really tracked this down yet. Where'd this dude make all his money? Like, I'm not talking about, he didn't go from, like Jim and I mean, hopefully we wouldn't, because we'd probably be god awful at it. But if we opened up a, what do you call it? Where you put money in the not a money market, but
a Roth or an IRA or something like
that.
No,
what he did, like where he managed people's.
Oh, yeah, a hedge fund.
Thank you, hedge fund. I got to believe that it would take, first of all, we'd have a tough time getting people putting money in. But I mean, if we did, it would take a while, because neither one of us.
Now think of it though, the 80s and 90s, when he was amassing that name and wealth,
right,
were notorious for fake hedge funds.
Right. No, I get that. But I mean, you and I don't have any agency, like we don't run in those circles. So it would take us, I'm not saying we couldn't be successful at it, I was making a joke, but it would take us a long time to get there. Epstein sort of came out of nowhere, and next thing you know, it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, did he really come out of nowhere? Is it just because that's how we perceive it? Because I feel like what I've learned in my reading is that there was a slow build. Like there were things happening, right? And I mean, you can go back into the Studio 54 days and things like that, where he had influence he was building, right?
Right.
He was a nobody who wanted to be somebody, and that's that he fought his way into that.
Well, but see, that's what I'm saying, and I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying it seems like the chicken and the egg. So in order to buy influence, I've got to make money, but I'm not going to make that kind of money without buying influence. It's like, how did that? Because I know I can't remember the guy's name. I really wish I could, but I read a story that there was the guy who is his name, Congress, they did at his home, closed door question with him, an older guy, and he goes, "Well, I really didn't know what was going on." And he bankrolled a lot. He helped Epstein in the beginning with a lot of bankrolling. I think he was paying him like, what was it, $3 million a year or something like that to do his taxes or something like. And I may be off on that.
It's a shelter. It's a place to hide your
Right.
money. Right? You're rich. You're looking for ways to hide money.
So, well, and that's the other thing. If Jim Houck has a lot of stuff on me, and I'm famous, and I don't want to lose everything, I'll give Jim $3 million a year in consulting fees. I'm doing the air quotes for those of you listening. To keep, hey Jim, I'll give you $3 million a year. We'll call it consulting. Pay the taxes on it. You keep your mouth shut. And Jim goes, yeah, 3 million sounds about right. So I mean, I'm not saying that's how.
Chuck, that information is probably worth a little more now.
Well, agreed.
Might need you to pay me a little bit more.
Agreed. But I'm saying I could see, and I'm not saying that,
Yeah,
but I can certainly see how that would happen.
So Chuck, is Epstein alive or dead?
What's that?
Is Epstein alive or dead?
I don't know. And I don't usually, I've talked about this before. I don't usually deal in conspiracy theories, but I'm going to answer you in the shortest way I know how, which is, buckle up. I have a friend I used to work with, love him to death. And he was I think I've talked about him before. Any conspiracy theory, he was all in. And he was talking about Epstein and that, he was taken out and all of this kind of stuff. Like, okay, by who? And he said, well, the only person with enough power to do it. And I was like, okay, here we go. And he goes, Bill Clinton. I'm like, wait, time the fuck out. Time out.
Wow.
Bill Clinton had been out of office for what? 15 years? I can't do that math in my head, but had been out of office for like 15 years at that point. Bill Clinton's, let's face it, Bill Clinton's reputation when it comes to women and things like that is already blown up. It's not like it's going to get much worse.
If anyone could do it, it would have been Hillary.
Right. Well, I mean, unless there was a video of him like sodomizing a young child or something. Anything short of that, people are.
Because he doesn't care about the picture in the blue dress.
Right. But I'm saying anybody at this point is like, Bill Clinton's in the Epstein files. Okay. I'm not trying to be funny, but like, okay. But I'm like, wait. Dude, who has the most to lose by Epstein singing like a bird? And who's the most powerful man in the world? And this was in Trump's first term. And I'm like, Donald Trump. And he goes, well, but why would he do that? I'm like, because his name's all over the fucking Epstein's file. I know. He goes, how do you know that? I'm like, because they were best friends for like 15 years. Well, guess what? They released the Epstein's files. What's he in it? Like 38,000 times or something crazy like that. So I'm not saying, all I'm saying is they put him in a cell with a former cop who murdered like 4 people. It's an official report. This cop tried to strangle him with his bare hands like 2 or 3 weeks before he actually died. And then suddenly, so several weeks before he died, this cop finds a suicide note stuck in a book, the infamous suicide note, but kept it to himself until after Epstein took his life, even though 2 of his neck bones were shattered. And that's impossible to do that way. I don't know. I think it's simple. I think you wait and see if you wait a little while longer, and if Trump pardons, what's his name? The cop. Anyway, Fantioni, or I don't know. I could be wrong. Anyway, whatever that former cop's name is, if he gets a magic pardon as Trump's walking out the door, then
another one for you, Chuck. Charlie Kirk's still alive? Because boy, there's been some fun stories going in the news this week on that one.
I don't know, but I will say that just like the supposed assassination attempt at the press dinner, I don't think the kid who supposedly shot Charlie Kirk. I don't believe that. That smells.
Well, Erica took a sudden recess this past couple of weeks. She stepped down from her role, right? She's getting out of Turning Point to go back to family, which, by the way, her family has been invisible since Charlie Kirk died. Kids nowhere, family nowhere, and if any woman could look through a camera and pierce your soul, that woman can do it. I mean, there are times where you watch her and you go, ooh, there's some darkness in there. There's some real scary shit going on in that head.
I just think it's interesting in the world we live in when you're so fucking cold that like 3 or 4, what was it? 3, and I'm going to get this wrong. Don't get mad at me. Like 3 or 4 days after Charlie Kirk died, they had that big, with the fireworks
show. Yeah.
Yeah. And
PR's coming out show.
Right. And I forgive you and this and that. And then like a week later, she's popping up out of the floor and pumping her fists and everything else. You're a cold fish when MAGA folks are like, this smells funny. You know what I mean? When the hardcore MAGAs are like when the hardcore MAGAs are like, what's up with this woman?
Like you've been following Supreme Leader too much.
Well, I'm not saying, look, I don't want to get sued. Not that I have anything. You're more than willing to take the little bit I have.
Maybe the popularity.
Yeah, I'm not saying that she had anything to do with his death. I'm really not saying that. But what I will say, and I think I've said this before, I don't think it affected her the way it would have affected other wives. I really don't. Just by her
But anytime you lose somebody who even remotely close to you, you get a little tinge, right?
Yeah, I'm not doing a, jumping out of the floor with fireworks and pumping my fist a week or two later. Fuck no. I mean,
And mistakenly putting the wrong tense and turns on words that suddenly make people go, did you really just say that?
right, well, so here's what I'll say. It would shock me less if Epstein were alive than Charlie Kirk. And I know you can.
Okay.
Well, the only reason I say that is because there's time missing, and I mean, how many people actually saw Epstein's dead body? And if I am trying to silence him or not, or whatever, I make it well, just like there's a conspiracy theory about Osama bin Laden. Now, here's what I will say about that. And again, a long time ago, he could fucking, burn in hell for all I care. But I do know when they buried him at sea, they said, I believe it was every minute that his dead body was above ground, so to speak, was more and more of a martyr he could become. So I do believe from a political expediency point of view, dump his ass in the ocean. He doesn't exist anymore. And then that kind of kills pardon the pun, well, it kills the momentum that he might have gotten. Now, again, maybe that's all bullshit. But I at least see the sense in that. With Charlie Kirk, that all happened in front of a bunch of people. And I'm like you. I go back to what you said about keeping secrets and about one person turning. All it would have taken in that crowd is one person to know a little something about something and see an odd angle and be like, wait a minute, this doesn't flush.
Yeah, well, they learned after Butler.
Entirely possible. Entirely possible. But Epstein, quote unquote, died in a very secure place where there weren't many people around. Charlie Kirk, the incident, I'm assuming he's dead, happened in front of a shit ton of people. And again, like you and I talked about, it's just like when and the reason Alex Jones is not on he doesn't own his own show anymore is because of the Sandy Hook thing. People are like, they're actors. Look, I could probably get to Jim Houck and Chuck Longerbeam, pay them enough money, threaten their lives and their families' lives and all of that to keep them to stay quiet for the rest of their life. I could probably do that. A town of 30,000 people, there's no fucking way. A whole school, there's no fucking way. Just when it comes to
It's any conspiracy, right? That's always the say. They say that you can't have that many people hold a secret. But the question is, can that many people hold a little secrets, right? That's where I go. It's more like
thing. Well, there's a lot of nuance there. Well, it's like, I think I told you about my friend who was like looking into whether the earth was flat or not. And I just told him, I said, look, here's how I look at conspiracy theories. And this may or may not make sense to people listening, but it makes sense to me. I look at it logically. I have 3 tiers of hell no, maybe, and absolutely. I asked him, I said, so you believe that, let's say, and I don't know the numbers, but bear with me. Let's say there are 100,000 pilots in the world. I don't know if that's right or wrong, and I don't fucking care. Just go with the number, people. Release your keyboard for a minute. Let's say there are 100,000 pilots in the world from how many, 289 countries or whatever it is. Do we really believe that if the earth was flat, and they knew they had to get to a certain point and turn around and go back, or they were going to fall off the earth, do we believe that 100,000 pilots from 289 countries could all keep that secret for the last, how long's flight been a thing? Let's say 100. It's been more than that, but commercial flights, comfortably 100 years. Do we really believe they've been able to keep that quiet? And the answer is like, absolutely not. Somebody would have sold that shit to TMZ and made some money.
Pilots, it's even less likely.
How many?
Up to 400,000 pilots.
Okay, but I mean, somebody would have broken with tradition. They sold that shit to TMZ and made some money. So that's how I look at things. I'm like, it can't be true. But with Epstein, how many people, I mean, you and I talking right now, we're talking out of our ass. How many people were involved in that? I'm talking about in the prison, in
at least 2 guards, a prison cell person. That's it, really.
I mean, you could easily keep it under 5. And then people in the government, if the government was really if they really offed him and all of that, and you got somebody like in the CIA or something like that, people are sworn to secrecy anyway. They're picked for their ability to keep things to themselves. So it's possible. I don't know. I think he's dead because the main reason is because I think, why would you keep him alive?
I don't know. To me, I didn't know a lot about Charlie Kirk, right? So when it flashed up, I was like, well, who the hell is he? Why is it such a big deal? He got shot today. It's one of those, because I didn't know, right?
What do you know now?
Not really.
Oh, his father was a big time political operative, and they decided that he was good at speaking. So his father and 2 other right wing political operatives put him in a position, bankrolled him, and then he built
the political future.
Right. So he had a lift up. So he was raised in it, and he had a lift up.
Got it. Okay.
You're right. It just all of a sudden he was who, and then it took off.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when, in some ways, like we knew W would come on the stage, but nobody knew when, right? So like when he popped up for president that one time, it's like, oh wow, okay. Like it wasn't this in everybody's choice, whatever you were thinking about it. So listen, Chuck, I know you wanna not be on this long today. I have got an amazing baggie today.
Hit me, baby. Hit me, baby.
So this past few weeks, our amazing FBI director, Mr. Googly Eyes Patel, sorry if that offends anybody, he's been to Hawaii and he was snorkeling. And you know where
Jim?
he was snorkeling around the USS Arizona, which is a protected site, a cemetery, a memorial, and many other things. And
Are
it
people
just
allowed to do that, Jim?
do the complete. No, you can't even get near the place with a snorkel.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, isn't it? So it sort of spikes this whole like, it's as good as him this week, and people are copying, it's quoting him on the news and saying, oh, they're going to catch me drunk. It's like, dude, they've caught you doing everything. It's surprising you haven't lost your job yet, bro. But there you go. One more time, our fabulous member of the FBI, the man who we trust to hold the right and wrong leads for America, just does whatever he damn well pleases. I thought that was the best total bonehead baggie I could get for a week. And I thought I had some pretty dumb things before. This one was more like, really?
Well, that perfect baggy, Jim. Perfect baggy. Thank you. But we talked about post hypocrisy. He's also the same guy that when he was a podcaster was screaming about Biden playing golf and about people wasting money on this and so on and so forth. And then he gets in power. How many? I would love we're never going to get one, but I would love a true accounting of how many millions of American dollars he has blown on his little power trip because he's able to do these things because who the hell's going to stop him? Not you and me.
I mean, we've had issues like this before with cabinet members kind of doing it in the damn well please because they had a government jet and they could do it. But it's not new to us, but this is pretty seriously funny.
Well, but they usually get busted and they usually get quote unquote resigned because it's embarrassing to the president. This president is probably like, damn, I wish I'd thought of that.
This president's probably sitting there going, I can't really let this guy go because he might say something.
Or more importantly, damn, I wish I'd thought of that. I could have done that too. So Jim, I'm going to depart a little bit. I don't have a happy ending. I don't have a happy ending in the traditional sense that we've used. My happy ending is I have to this week. I have to end on a hope, not hope, a hope. And that is whether it's right, left, up, down, independent, backwards, forwards, green, black, purple, I don't care. I hope that all of the grifting and all of the income disparity and all of the just absolute abuse of power that we're seeing from this administration and from and go ahead, we'll put the left in there. There's some on the left. I can't remember the woman's name who just got busted. I think it was in Florida for embezzling money. Good. Prosecute her ass and get her out of there too. Truly, all of them, any of them. I just hope that we get someone in 2028. Well, first of all, I hope we get some accountability in the midterms. I really, really do. I hope we get some accountability so that we're not in the shit show for the next 2 years after the midterms. I hope there's some accountability, some pushback, some brakes on this runaway train. But I hope we get somebody in 2028 who spends a lot of time rebuilding with our allies, rebuilding trust and understanding with our allies, who actually pushes an agenda that helps American people, the rank and file American people, and stops enriching billionaires. And I hope that whoever takes over takes a page out of Mondami's handbook and says, yeah, I'm going to tax billionaires who have, extra homes and all of that. Did you see that? Did I read that correctly, that he closed the deficit gap in New York just with that fucking tax?
I think and Newsom announced today that he's closed California. There's no more California dust. They managed to clear their debts. I mean, there are places happening and there's good leaders.
Right. And we've talked about this. If I take 10% of your income, that hurts. That's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt me. If I take 10%, and I'm just throwing out random numbers, so don't freak out, people. But if I take an extra 1% out of somebody who's worth, $400 billion, they're not going to fucking miss it. And I'm not trying to be all socialist and communist and all that. I'm just saying we all know, we've known for decades that these people do not pay their fair share. They have accountants and lawyers, and they jump through every fucking tax loophole. And I remember it's been probably, I don't know how many years ago it was. I think it was probably in the first Trump presidency when Warren Buffett came out and said, I pay a lower percentage of tax than my secretary does. Not a lower number, but a lower percentage. So, I'm paying, what am I paying? 20%, whatever the fuck it is. Why the hell isn't someone worth $500 billion paying 23%? And I'm just, again, throwing out fucking random numbers. But you can't tell me that if I made $1 billion this year, but I only get to take home $750 million, that's going to hurt me. Whereas if somebody takes home, I'm not really good at math. Somebody makes, $40,000 a year and only takes home 32. You can't tell me that there's not a huge difference in pain there. And I just don't, I'm not saying people shouldn't pay taxes, and I'm not saying the ultra wealthy should pay 90%. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the ultra wealthy should pay the percentage they're legally supposed to pay without jumping through all the loopholes. And I think Bernie Sanders said it best. I think he said, what did he say? Something like, we raised the income tax on billionaires 1%, just 1%, and they actually paid it, it would fund all public school systems and universal health care in this country. No, take your blue hat or your red hat or whatever the fuck off for a minute and
1%. Ask
yourself, do you have a problem with these people paying 1% so that you don't have to pay for health care anymore? And your kids' school will be fully funded, so they'll put the music and art programs back in and all the things that make kids want to stay in school. And I don't care who you are, if you're a regular American, you're going to go, yeah, that fucking makes sense. But when the billionaires and their buddies like Donald Trump are in power, they're never going to pay their fair share. And that, to me, is the biggest downfall of the country we live in right now, is that those people are running everything. And that's why I felt hopeless this week, because I hope I'm proved wrong in November, but I don't see any checks and balances on. I just see the rich getting richer more than any other time in history, except maybe the Gilded Age, and people like you and me struggling just get through our lives. So my happy ending is, I have hope that in November, if you can't bring yourself to vote for a Democrat, don't. Just stay the fuck home. If you can't,
vote for someone who's doing the right thing. Let's put it even that way.
Right. Well, I say a Democrat because the only reason I say that is this is not a political issue for me. This is a checks and balance issue. We have got to have Democrats take over the House, and hope
one of these parties needs, they take part of some portion,
because there's no brakes on the bus. And this we've got to have a group of people with actual power who could tell Donald Trump, no, stop. You're not doing this anymore. They did a war powers resolution again this week, and and Fetterman and one other knucklehead and the Republicans voted against it. Why? It's political suicide. Why are you letting? I mean, gas prices are.
No, they reined Ronnie in when they figured out what he was doing with the Contra money, right? I mean, they reined in with that.
Yes, absolutely. So anyway, I'm done. Thank you, Jim. I mean, we'll stay on as long as you want. It's been a rough week, and I'm not being whiny. It's been a rough week for me because I was telling my wife, and you and I were talking, I just had this hopeless feeling where I really thought we were moving. And this is really funny, guys. I'll say this again. So take your fingers off your keyboards. I care less about the Democrats taking over because they're Democrats. What we need some brakes on this bus, because the Republicans in the House and Senate have proven over and over again for the last, 16, 17 months, that whatever Donald Trump wants, Donald Trump's going to get. And that's fucking dangerous. We broke from the British in 250 years ago because we didn't want a system where one person or one group of people ran everything.
Don't forget that point. So folks, thanks for tuning in today. Remember to do the thing that costs you no money, which is like and subscribe. And, a little more somber feeling today, but I think for everybody out there, you're probably feeling some of what Chuck's feeling, and that's okay. And that's why we're here too, is, get it off your chest, talk about it, talk to us in the comments, talk to your neighbors, have a conversation, please. Go on, talk to people. Don't try to talk over, don't try to talk through, go on, talk to them, be kind, love each other, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you, folks.
Look, we spent plenty of time talking about passports, exotic places, and investing and got lost.
Mostly because Jim actually got us lost half the time.
Hey, it's called unplanned exploration.